All right, today we are jumping into one of the most intense, high-stakes moments in the entire book of Exodus. It's an incredible story about betrayal, a really strange request, and a stunning reveal of what God's glory actually looks like.
So, let me ask you this. Just imagine a relationship is totally shattered. A promise, a covenant is broken almost the second it's made. If you were the one trying to put the pieces back together, what's the one thing you'd ask for? Justice? Maybe an apology? Or just a guarantee it's not going to happen again?
Well, in this moment of absolute crisis, this is what Moses asks God. Not for new strategy, not for punishment for the people, but for this: show me your glory. It is such a profound and frankly weird request that gets right to the very heart of this entire story.
Okay, so to really get why this request was so radical, we first have to understand the scale of the disaster that had just happened. This was bad.
So picture this. Moses is up on the mountain, literally receiving the terms of this new relationship with God. And while that's happening, the people down below are already cheating on him. They build a golden calf, a total act of idolatry, and shatter the covenant. The relationship is just broken from the very start.
And God's reaction? It's intense. He tells Moses, look, the promise to give you the land, that's still on the table, but I'm withdrawing my most important promise, my own personal presence. The threat is very real. His pure holiness and their stubborn rebellion, they're like fire and gasoline.
So God offers this compromise. You can have the destination, you can have the promised land, but you can't have me. I'll send an angel, a proxy, to lead you there. It's like the real estate deal is still on, but the relationship is completely off.
But for Moses, this wasn't a compromise at all, not even close. He understood something really deep. The destination was totally pointless without God's presence on the journey. So Moses pushes back. He doesn't try to defend the people. He knows they're guilty. Instead, he appeals to God's own character and reputation. He argues that without God's presence, they're not special. They're just another tribe wandering around in the desert. God's presence is their entire identity.
And it works. God agrees. He promises his presence will go with them. But in that moment, Moses knows he needs something more. He needs an unshakable assurance. So what does he ask for?
He asked to see God's glory. Now, this was not a request for a fireworks show. He wasn't asking for a supernatural spectacle. Moses was asking to know God, to truly understand his character, his ways. He was asking to see the very heart of the one who was leading them.
And incredibly, God says yes. But the way he reveals his glory is completely unexpected, and it changes the entire foundation of their relationship from this moment on.
God himself defines his own glory. And get this, it's not about overwhelming power or some kind of blinding light. God says his glory is his goodness. It's his character, all wrapped up in his name. He's about to give Moses the only assurance that matters, by showing him who he really is.
And as God passes by, he proclaims his own character. And the very first things he names are compassion and grace. That's the starting point. That's the foundation of who he is.
Next, he reveals something that speaks right into the middle of their crisis. He is slow to anger. Now, in the face of their immediate, massive betrayal, this isn't some abstract idea. This is a life-saving reality. It's his patience.
And finally, the very heart of it all. He is overflowing with steadfast, loyal love and unwavering faithfulness. This is God's self-portrait. This is his glory. It's not a fleeting power, but an eternal character.
You see, this revelation wasn't just interesting information for Moses. It became the brand new, unshakable foundation upon which God would renew his broken covenant with Israel.
This just creates this incredible shift. The whole relationship moves from being based on the people's ability to keep the law, which, they'd already failed at, to one based on God's unchanging, gracious character. So the result is no longer fear and distance, but now a renewed possibility for real intimacy and presence.
And this renewed relationship isn't just some abstract idea. It has a stunning, visible sign. When Moses comes down from the mountain with the new stone tablets, his own face is shining, physically radiant from being in the presence of God.
And the radiant face wasn't for Moses' own ego. He didn't even realize it was happening at first. It was for the terrified people. It was a tangible, unavoidable sign that Moses had truly been with God, and that God's promise to be present with them was real. It was the ultimate reassurance. So this is a fascinating story, right? But what's the core message here? Why is this one moment so pivotal in the grand scheme of things?
Well, it comes down to this core principle. Moses understood that to trust God's actions, he first had to understand God's character. His actions flow directly from who he is. That's why the revelation of God's name, his character, was the only assurance that truly mattered. This story really shows us three crucial truths. First, that God is a living, relational being who gets right into the messiness of our failures. Second, that true glory isn't found in raw power, but in moral character, in goodness. And third, that our relationship with Him is ultimately secured not by our perfection, but by His faithfulness.
And that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. This story completely reframes what it means to look for God. It challenges us to see His glory less in the dramatic and the spectacular, and more in the quiet, consistent acts of compassion, patience, and faithfulness all around us.